Welcome to All Things Storybound, a creative outlet where any and all kinds of stories come to life.
From magical to mythical to mortifying, let us take you on a journey you've never experienced before.
Grab your favorite drink and get comfortable. You're in for a wild story ahead. Chapter 1.
The towering stone walls of the labyrinth loom before us, rising like jagged mountains against the twilight sky. The entrance, an archway carved from black stone, feels more like a mouth ready to devour us than a gateway to the next phase of our journey. Shadows cling to the walls, stretching unnaturally long as the last rays of sunlight fade. There's an ancient weight here, something that makes the air thicker, harder to breathe. The labyrinth hums with a low, almost imperceptible sound, like the deep thrum of a sleeping giant. This is the final trial, the last test standing between us and our destinies. If we succeed, we'll graduate from Menkarion Academy with full honors, our names forever etched in history. If we fail, no one talks about what happens if you fail the labyrinth. Those who do are simply never seen again. And that thought, of disappearing without a trace, is more terrifying than any monster that might be lurking inside those twisted halls. I steal a glance at my friends, my companions who have stood by my side through every challenge and hardship. Valen, Mari, and Talia. Each of us has something to prove, though our reasons may be different. For me, it's about my name, Rayna, daughter of King Logan and Queen Samara. I am the heir to a throne, the product of centuries of leadership and power. The people of Menkar expect greatness from me, just as they did from my mother and father. But as I stand here, facing the labyrinth, I'm not sure if I can live up to those expectations. Valen, with his easy confidence, adjusts the grip on his water-forged blade. The steel shimmers faintly in the dimming light, a reflection of his unique power. His dark hair falls messily across his forehead, and despite his usual cocky grin, there's tension in his jaw.
Well, this is it, Rayna. Our final act. Ready to make history?
I manage a tight smile, though my stomach twists with nerves. As ready as I'll ever be. Mari is already scanning the entrance, her telekinetic energy sparking faintly around her fingertips. She's the strategist, the planner, always thinking 2 steps ahead. We have to assume the labyrinth's going to change constantly. The stories say it adapts to whoever enters.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Valen says, his voice tinged with nervous excitement.
But we've been through worse, right?
Nothing like this, Talia murmurs, her voice barely audible. She stands apart from us, her gaze fixed on the darkness within the labyrinth. Her connection to the death dimension gives her an almost eerie sense of the world around her, and I know if she's uneasy, we should all be on the edge. It feels wrong in there. I follow her gaze, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. There's something about the labyrinth, something that makes my skin crawl. It's not just the fear of failure. It's the sense that the labyrinth is waiting for us, watching, like a predator stalking its prey. We go in together, I say firmly, trying to steady my voice. No one gets left behind. We'll face whatever's in there, and we'll come out on the other side. All of us. Talia nods slowly, but there's no relief in her eyes. With a deep breath, I step forward, crossing the threshold of the labyrinth. The moment my foot touches the stone floor inside, everything changes. The air grows colder, sharper, and the light seems to dim even further, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. The labyrinth's walls rise higher on either side of us, jagged and rough, their surfaces etched with faint, glowing symbols that pulse with ancient magic. The passages stretch ahead, twisting and turning, some narrowing to barely a crawl space, others widening into vast, empty corridors that seem to go on forever. There's no sound, but the faint echo of our footsteps and the soft hum of the magic embedded in the walls. It's disorienting, like we've stepped into another world entirely. A world that exists outside of time and space, where the normal rules of reality don't apply. We move cautiously, our weapons ready, our senses heightened. Every corner feels like it could hide a trap. Every shadow seems to be watching us. I try to focus, to keep my mind sharp, but the oppressive atmosphere of the labyrinth makes it hard to think clearly. It feels like the walls are closing in, like the air itself is pressing against us, waiting for one of us to slip up. Stick close, I remind the group, my voice barely more than a whisper. The labyrinth is designed to disorient us, to separate us. Don't let it get inside your head.
Easier said than done.
Valen mutters, glancing warily at the shifting shadows.
This place has already messed with my senses.
I don't like this, Mari adds, her eyes flicking to the walls. It's too quiet. There should be something, anything. Talia, as usual, remains silent, her gaze fixed ahead. She's the one I worry about the most. Her connection to the death dimension makes her sensitive to energies and presences that the rest of us can't detect. And right now, she looks tense, like she's waiting for something bad to happen. Suddenly, the ground beneath our feet trembles, a low, deep rumble that vibrates through the stone walls. We freeze.
What was that?
Valen asks, his voice tight with tension. Before anyone can answer, a deep, guttural growl echoes from the shadows ahead. The sound is low and menacing, like the growl of a predator sizing up its prey. It reverberates through the labyrinth, sending a shiver down my spine. My heart skips a beat. Something's coming. Something big. Get ready, I whisper, summoning the light within me. My hands begin to glow softly, casting a warm, flickering light across the narrow corridor. Valen grips his blade, his muscles tensing as he prepares for a fight.
Here we go.
From the darkness, a massive figure emerges. It's a hulking beast, its body covered in thick, stone-like scales, its eyes glowing red in the dim light. Its claws scrape against the ground as it moves toward us, slow and deliberate, its growl deepening with every step. It's easily twice the size of any creature we've faced before, and its sheer presence fills the corridor, leaving little room for escape. Scatter, I shout just as the beast charges. Valen moves first, his blade flashing as he leaps forward, aiming for the creature's exposed side. His strike lands with a sharp crack, but the blade barely leaves a scratch on the beast's stony hide. The creature roars in fury, swiping at him with its massive claws, and Valen barely manages to roll out of the way.
I can't break through its armor,
He yells, frustration clear in his voice. Mari steps forward, her hands glowing with telekinetic energy. With a flick of her wrist, she hurls chunks of debris from the ground at the creature, striking it in the chest and head. But the stones bounce off harmlessly, doing little to slow its advance. It's too strong, Mari shouts, her brow furrowed in concentration. I step forward, summoning the light within me, feeling it surge through my veins like a living force. I gather it in my palms, shaping it into a glowing orb of radiant energy. With a sharp breath, I unleashed the blast, aiming for the cracks in the creature's armor. The light slams into the beast, and it lets out a deafening roar, stumbling back as the energy pulses through its body. For a moment, I think it's down, but the creature recovers quickly, its eyes blazing with fury. It charges again, faster this time, its claws outstretched, ready to tear us apart. Before it can reach me, Talia steps forward, her hands glowing with the eerie energy of the death dimension. She raises a shimmering barrier of light, and the creature crashes into it, momentarily stunned by the force of her magic. Now, Talia shouts, her voice strained with effort. Valen doesn't hesitate. With a powerful swing, he drives his blade into the cracks forming on the creature's chest. This time, the blade sinks deep into its core. And with a final, earth-shattering roar, the beast collapses, its massive body crumbling into dust. For a long moment, the labyrinth is silent, save for the sound of our ragged breaths. That was just the first one, I say, wiping sweat from my brow. We need to stay sharp. The labyrinth isn't done with us yet. We continue down the corridor, but the weight of the labyrinth presses in on us, and I know that this trial has only just begun.
Chapter 2.
The moment we leave the site of the beast's defeat, the atmosphere in the labyrinth shifts again. The walls, once jagged and uneven, now seem to pulse with a slow rhythmic beat, like the heartbeat of something ancient and alive. The faint, eerie glow of the runes carved into the stone grows brighter, their light casting dancing shadows across the narrow path ahead of us. The air is heavy with magic. It feels thicker, more oppressive, like the labyrinth is pressing down on us, trying to squeeze the breath from our lungs. I can feel the magic tugging at my mind, pulling at the edges of my thoughts, trying to unravel my sense of direction. It's disorienting, and the further we walk, the more I feel the pressure of the maze working to confuse us. It's changing, Mari mutters, her voice tense. Her telekinetic energy flickers around her fingertips, reacting to the shift in the air. The labyrinth is trying to disorient us. We knew that would happen, I reply, though I feel the same sense of unease creeping over me. We just have to stay focused. But it's not that simple. As we continue deeper into the maze, the walls begin to shift behind us. At first, it's subtle. A slight tremor in the stone, a faint movement in the shadows. But soon, it becomes undeniable. Passages that were once open are now blocked by solid walls, and new corridors seem to stretch out ahead of us, twisting and turning in impossible ways. The labyrinth is alive, adapting to our every step.
It's like it's trying to trap us.
Valen mutters, glancing over his shoulder. His grip tightens on the hilt of his water-forged blade, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow.
I feel like we're walking in circles.
We probably are, Mari replies, her voice calm but sharp with focus. The labyrinth isn't just a maze. It's designed to confuse us, to mess with our heads. We can't let it get to us, I say firmly, even though as I speak, I feel the weight of the labyrinth pressing in on my mind. It's like walking through a thick fog, where every step feels heavier, more uncertain. We stick to the plan. Stay close, stay focused. But even as I say it, doubt flickers at the edges of my thoughts. The labyrinth feels different now, more insidious, more personal. It's not just trying to confuse us, it's trying to break us. I don't like this, Talia murmurs, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes are wide, her gaze fixed on the shifting shadows ahead. There's something else, something in the walls. What do you mean? I ask, glancing at her. If she senses something, I trust her instincts. I can feel them, she whispers, her voice trembling. There are creatures in the walls, watching us. A chill runs down my spine. Valen frowns, glancing at the walls.
What kind of creatures?
Talia doesn't answer immediately, her gaze still locked on the shadows. They're not physical. They're part of the labyrinth. They're waiting for us to make a mistake. I swallow hard, feeling the cold weight of her words settle over me. We've faced monsters before, creatures of flesh and blood. But this feels different. The labyrinth isn't just a physical maze. It's alive, and it's filled with things that shouldn't exist. Then we can't give them an opening, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. We move carefully. No rushing, no splitting up. We press forward, moving cautiously through the twisting corridors. The labyrinth seems to stretch on forever, its passages winding and looping back on themselves, as though mocking our efforts to make progress. The runes on the walls pulse with a faint, eerie glow, casting strange patterns of light and shadow that play tricks on the eye. Every time I think I see something moving in the corner of my vision, it disappears the moment I try to focus on it. The walls shift again. Without warning, the ground beneath us begins to tremble, and the stone walls groan as they move. The corridor we're walking through suddenly narrows, the walls pressing in on either side, and the floor beneath us starts to slope downward, like we're being funneled into some deeper part of the labyrinth.
This doesn't feel right.
Valen says, his voice tight with tension. He glances over his shoulder as if expecting the walls to close in on us completely. We're being pushed somewhere, Mari adds, her eyes scanning the passage ahead. The labyrinth is guiding us. Guiding us to what? I ask, though I already know the answer. To whatever it wants us to face next. As the path narrows further, the air grows colder, and I can feel the magic pressing against my senses like a physical weight. The light from the ruins flickers, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to writhe along the walls. My pulse quickens, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts as the oppressive atmosphere closes in around us. We need to find a way out of this section, I say, my voice strained. There has to be. Suddenly, the ground gives way beneath us. Before I can react, we are falling. The floor crumbles beneath our feet, and we're plunged into darkness, the cold, damp air rushing past us as we tumble into the unknown. We land hard. The impact knocks the breath from my lungs, and for a moment all I can hear is the echo of my own ragged breathing. The cold, wet sensation of stone and water seeps through my clothes, and when I finally push myself up, I realize we've fallen into an underground chamber, a vast cavern with a shallow river running through its center. The walls of the cavern are smooth, worn down by centuries of water and time, and the faint glow of the runes is still present, though dimmer here. The air is damp and heavy, filled with the sound of rushing water and the distant drip of water echoing off the stone. "Everyone okay?" I ask, my voice echoing slightly in the cavern.
Define okay.
Valen groans, rolling onto his back and staring up at the ceiling.
I think I bruised my everything.
Mari is already on her feet, her eyes scanning the cavern with a focused intensity. "We've fallen far," she says, her voice sharp with concentration. "There's no way back up. We'll have to find another way back out." Talia remains silent, her gaze fixed on the river. There's a tension in her posture, a stillness that unnerves me. "Talia?" I ask, stepping closer to her. "What is it?" She doesn't answer immediately, her eyes locked on the dark water flowing past us. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely more than a whisper. "There's something in the water." A chill runs down my spine. I step closer to the river, squinting at the dark surface, but I don't see anything out of the ordinary. The water flows smoothly, undisturbed, its surface reflecting the faint glow of the runes on the walls. But I trust Talia's instincts. If she says something is there, then something is there. "Everyone, stay back," I say, my voice low. "We don't know what we're dealing with." Before anyone can react, the water begins to churn violently. Without warning, a massive serpent-like creature bursts from the river, its body shimmering with iridescent scales. Its jaws snap open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth, and it lunges at us with terrifying speed. "Move!" I shout, summoning the light within me. The blast of radiant energy slams into the creature, but it barely slows down. Its massive body coils around us, trapping us in its constricting grip. The pressure is crushing, squeezing the air from my lungs, and I can feel the strength of the creature as it tightens its hold. Mari raises her hands, her telekinetic power flaring to life. She grabs hold of the serpent's body, straining against its strength, but even with her power, she can't break its grip. "It's too strong," she gasps, her voice tight with effort. Talia steps forward, her eyes glowing with an eerie light. She raises her hands, and a beam of crackling energy shoots from her palms, striking the serpent between its glowing eyes. The creature lets out a deafening roar, thrashing wildly as it releases its hold on us. We scramble to our feet, gasping for breath, but the serpent isn't finished. It lunges again, its jaws snapping at Talia. But before it can reach her, Valen charges forward, his blade flashing as he swings with all of his strength. The water-forged steel slices through the serpent's flesh, and with a final, ear-splitting roar, the creature collapses into the river, its body dissolving into the water. For a moment, we stand there, panting and shaken, but alive. "We need to move," I say, my voice hoarse from the fight. "That thing might not be the only one down here." We hurry along the water's edge, the cold water lapping at our feet as we make our way deeper into the cavern. The path ahead is narrow, the walls closing in around us, but there's a faint light in the distance, a glimmer of hope. But even as we move toward the light, I can't shake the feeling that the labyrinth is far from finished with us.
Chapter 3.
The sound of rushing water echoes through the dim cavern as we press forward, our footsteps slow and careful. The underground river winds its way through the narrow passage, its dark waters flowing silently beside us. The faint glow from the runes on the walls casts strange shadows, flickering and shifting as if they have a life of their own. The air down here is cold and damp, thick with the scent of earth and wet stone. Every breath feels heavy, like the atmosphere itself is pressing in on us, suffocating and unwelcoming. The river runs deep into the cavern, disappearing into the darkness ahead. I glance at my friends, feeling the weight of the silence between us. After the encounter with the serpent, no one seems willing to break the tense quiet. Each of us is on edge, senses heightened, waiting for the labyrinth to throw its next challenge at us. I can see it in their faces, the tight lines of worry etched into Mari's brow, the way Valen's grip hasn't relaxed from his blade since the fight, and Talia's faraway stare as she scans the shadows. We've made it this far, but the labyrinth isn't done with us yet. "We need to keep moving," I say, my voice barely more than a whisper. It feels wrong to speak too loudly here, as if the walls might hear us. The longer we stay in one place, the more vulnerable we are. Valen nods, but his usual cocky grin is absent.
Yeah, no arguments there. I'd rather not face another one of those, whatever the hell that serpent thing was.
Mari wipes her wet hands on her pants, her eyes still fixed on the river. "It's like the labyrinth is hurting us," she mutters. "First the beast, then the floor collapsing, now this underground maze. It feels like it's leading us somewhere." "To what, though?" Talia asked, her voice soft, but edged with fear. "It's not just random. There's a purpose to this." She's right. The labyrinth is alive, and it has a plan. I just don't know what that plan is. All I know is that we have to keep going. There's no turning back now. We move forward, our steps cautious, our eyes scanning every shadow, every ripple in the water. The walls of the cavern seem to pulse faintly, the runes carved into the stone glowing brighter the deeper we go. I can feel the magic of the labyrinth pressing against my skin, a constant hum that vibrates through my bones, making it hard to think clearly. It's like the labyrinth is trying to get inside our heads, to confuse us, to break us. The passage narrows as we continue, forcing us to walk single file along the edge of the river. The stone beneath our feet is slick with moisture, and more than once I feel my footing slip, my heart skipping a beat as I catch myself before falling into the freezing water.
Watch your step.
Valen calls back to us, his voice low.
This place is a death trap.
I want to respond, but something stops me. A strange sensation crawls across my skin, like the feeling of being watched. I stop walking, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. "What is it?" Mari asks, turning to face me. Her voice is calm, but there's a flicker of worry in her eyes. "I don't know. I murmur, glancing at the river. The sensation of being watched grows stronger, prickling along my arms and neck. There's something off. Talia, who has been quiet for most of the journey, steps closer to the river's edge, her eyes narrowing. She crouches down, her hand hovering just above the surface of the water. For a moment, she stays completely still, her gaze focused, her breathing shallow. Then her eyes widen, and she jerks back, her face pale. Something's in the water. My stomach drops. Before anyone can react, the water begins to ripple violently. At first, it's just a few small waves, but soon the entire surface of the river is churning, like something massive is moving beneath it. The air grows colder, and a low, rumbling growl echoes from somewhere deep below. Back away from the water, I shout, summoning the light within me, my hands glowing with radiant energy. The water explodes upward, and another massive, serpentine creature bursts from the river, at least twice as big as the last. Its scales shimmer in the faint light, iridescent and smooth, its body easily spanning the width of the cavern. It rises high above us, its glowing red eyes locked on us, its jaws opening wide to reveal rows of sharp, glistening teeth. It's huge, larger than anything we've faced so far. And it's hungry.
Move!
Valen yells, unsheathing his blade as the serpent lunges toward us. We scatter just in time as the serpent's massive body slams into the stone floor where we've been standing. The impact shakes the entire cavern, sending chunks of rock tumbling from the ceiling. I barely manage to roll out of the way, the cold spray of the river splashing across my face. Valen charges forward, his water-forged blade gleaming in the dim light as he swings at the serpent's exposed side. His blade makes contact, but the creature's scales are thick and impenetrable, and the strike does little more than anger it. The serpent rears back, its eyes flashing with fury as it snaps its jaws at Valen, forcing him to leap back. "We can't just fight it head on," I shout, pushing myself to my feet. "It's too strong." Mari raises her hands, her telekinetic energy sparking in the air around her. She grabs hold of the fallen rocks from the ceiling, hurling them at the serpent's head. The rocks hit with force, but the serpent barely flinches, its scales shimmering as the debris bounces off. "Damn it," Mari mutters, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to find a weak spot." "I'll keep it distracted," Talia calls, her voice filled with resolve. She steps forward, her hands glowing with dark energy from the death dimension. With a flick of her wrist, she sends a bolt of crackling energy toward the serpent's eyes. The creature roars in pain, thrashing wildly as the energy sears its flesh. For a moment, it seems stunned, its massive body coiling and writhing in the shallow water. "Now," I yell, summoning all the light I can muster. I gather it in my hands, shaping it into a concentrated ball of energy. With a sharp breath, I hurl it at the serpent's exposed underbelly. The blast hits with a blinding flash, and the serpent lets out a deafening roar, its body jerking violently as the light burns through its scales. It thrashes in agony, the water around it boiling and steaming from the force of the attack.
Keep going!
Valen shouts, swinging his blade again, aiming for the weak spot created by my blast. The serpent is weakening, but it's not finished yet. It lashes out with its tail, knocking Valen off his feet and sending him crashing into the cavern wall. He groans in pain, but before the creature can strike again, Mari uses her telekinesis to pull Valen to safety, her hands trembling with the effort. "We need to end this now," Talia says, her voice strained as she continues to channel energy toward the serpent. I nod, feeling the heat of the magic coursing through my veins. The serpent is on the defensive now, its movements slower, more sluggish. But it's still dangerous, and one wrong move could mean the end for us. I raise my hands again, focusing all my power into one final attack. The light surges within me, burning bright, and with a shout, I release it, sending a massive wave of radiant energy crashing into the serpent's chest. The creature roars one final time, its body convulsing as the light consumes it. Its scales crack and shatter, and with a deafening crash, it collapses into the river, its body disintegrating into nothingness. For a long moment, the only sound is the rush of the river and our labored breathing. Valen pulls himself to his feet, wiping blood from his mouth.
Well, that was fun.
Fun, Mari says, glaring at him. We almost died. Talia doesn't say anything, her eyes still fixed on the water where the serpent had been. Her hands are trembling, though whether from exhaustion or fear, I can't tell. We can't stay here, I say, my voice hoarse from the fight. There's no telling what else the labyrinth will throw at us. We need to keep moving. We gather ourselves, our bodies aching and bruised, but we push forward. The narrow passage along the river widens as we move deeper into the cavern, the faint light of the runes flickering as if guiding us forward. The air is still cold and damp, but the oppressive weight of the serpent's presence has lifted, leaving behind only the echo of rushing water. We're close to something, Talia says softly, her eyes narrowing as she peers ahead. I can feel it. I don't know what lies ahead, but I know one thing for certain. The labyrinth isn't finished with us yet.
Chapter 4.
The path widens as we move further from the underground river, our footsteps echoing off the walls of the cavern. The oppressive cold clings to the air, the moisture making the stones slick beneath our boots. Though the serpent is behind us, its memory still lingers, a reminder of just how dangerous the labyrinth is, and how much worse it might get. Ahead, the tunnel opens into a massive chamber, and as we step into the vast space, we all stop in our tracks. It's unlike anything we've seen so far. The ceiling stretches impossibly high above us, vanishing into the shadows, and the walls are lined with enormous, glowing crystals. They pulse faintly, casting an eerie, shifting light that bathes everything in a strange, ethereal glow. It almost feels like we've stepped into another world, a place where the boundaries between reality and magic are thin. At the center of the chamber stands a massive stone altar. It rises high above the floor, its surface etched with ancient symbols, their meaning long forgotten. The altar seems to hum with power, the air around it thick with magic. Beyond the altar, an enormous stone door looms. The exit.
We made it.
Valen says, his voice filled with cautious relief as he wipes sweat from his brow.
That has to be the way out.
Mari frowns, her eyes scanning the chamber. It's too easy. We're not just going to walk up to that door and leave. I glance around the chamber, my senses alert. She's right. This doesn't feel like the end. If anything, the air here feels heavier, more charged, like we're standing on the edge of something we don't fully understand. I feel the magic pulsing around us, stronger here than it's been anywhere else in the labyrinth. Talia steps forward, her eyes narrowing as she stares at the altar. There's something wrong. I can feel it. There's something here. Her words send a shiver down my spine. Before any of us can react, the ground beneath us begins to shake. A low, rumbling growl fills the chamber, reverberating through the walls. We all freeze, our eyes snapping to the altar. From the shadows behind the altar, a massive creature emerges. It's a towering stone guardian, its body carved from the same rock as the walls of the labyrinth. Its form is humanoid, but far larger than any human. Its stone limbs thick and powerful, its eyes glowing with that same eerie light as the crystals that line the chamber. It moves with slow, deliberate steps, each one sending tremors through the ground. We're not getting out of here without a fight, Mari mutters, her voice tight with tension. Valen draws his blade, his grip tightening.
Great. I was just thinking this whole thing was starting to get a little boring.
The stone guardian lets out a deafening roar, the sound shaking the very walls of the chamber as it moves toward us, its glowing eyes fixed on us like a predator stalking its prey. The massive fists it drags along the ground leave deep gouges in the stone floor, and its sheer size fills the room with a suffocating sense of dread. "Everyone, spread out," I shout, summoning the light within me, my hands glowing with a radiant energy. Valen charges forward, his blade raised high, the water-forged steel gleaming in the light of the crystals. He swings at the Guardian's legs, aiming for the joints, but the blade bounces off with a loud clang, barely leaving a scratch on the creature's thick stone hide.
Of course.
Valen mutters, rolling out of the way as the Guardian swings one of its massive fists at him, narrowly missing.
It's made of solid rock. My blade isn't doing anything.
Mari steps forward, her hands glowing as she uses her telekinesis to grab hold of a chunk of debris from the floor. With a flick of her wrist, she hurls the debris at the Guardian's head. The rock hits with a loud crack, but the creature barely reacts, its glowing eyes never leaving us as it continues its slow, relentless advance. "It's too strong," Mari says, frustration clear in her voice. "We're not doing enough damage." Talia is standing off to the side, her eyes focused on the glowing crystals lining the chamber. She's not watching the Guardian. She's watching the walls, the air around them, her expression growing more intense by the second. "Talia?" I ask, my voice tight with effort as I dodge a swing from the Guardian. "What are you seeing?" Her eyes narrow. "The crystals. They're tied to it. The magic from the crystals is feeding it." I glance at the crystals, and suddenly it all clicks into place. The glowing crystals lining the chamber aren't just for decoration. They're linked to the Guardian, providing it with the energy it needs to keep moving. If we destroy the crystals, we might be able to weaken the creature. "We need to take out the crystals," I shout to the others, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "That's its power source." Mari nods, already moving toward one of the nearest crystals. "I'll take the ones on the left,"
I've got the right.
Valen calls, his blade swinging at the Guardian's fists, trying to keep it distracted. Talia steps closer to the nearest crystal, her hands glowing with energy from the death dimension. She places her palms on the crystal, and with a sharp breath, she releases a surge of power. The crystal flares with light, then shatters with a deafening crack, sending shards of glowing rock flying across the chamber. The moment the crystal breaks, the stone Guardian staggers, its massive body trembling as if weakened by the sudden loss of power. Its glowing eyes flicker, dimming slightly, and its movements become slower, more sluggish. "It's working," I shout, relief flooding through me. "Keep going." Mari raises her hands, lifting several pieces of debris with her telekinesis. She hurls them at the next crystal, the impact shattering it to pieces. Another surge of light pulses through the chamber, and the Guardian falters again, its stone limbs cracking under the strain. Valen leaps forward, using the distraction to land a powerful blow on the Guardian's leg. This time, the blade sinks in, slicing through the weakened stone. The creature roars in pain, stumbling as its leg crumbles beneath it, but it's not done yet. "There's one more crystal," Talia calls, her voice strained as she channels another surge of energy into the nearest crystal. "We need to hit them all at once." I glance around the chamber, my eyes locking onto the final crystal, high above the altar. It's larger than the others, glowing with a blinding light, and I can feel the raw power radiating from it. This is the source of the Guardian's strength, the heart of its magic. "We'll hit it together," I say, gathering every bit of light I can summon. My hands glow brighter, the warmth of the magic filling me, steadying me. Mari raises her hands, her telekinesis flaring to life, while Valen moves into position, his blade gleaming with energy. Talia's hands glow with dark energy as she prepares to strike. "On my mark," I say, my heart pounding in my chest. "Now." We unleash our power in unison. A blast of light shoots from my hands, colliding with the crystal at the exact moment Mari's telekinetic force and Talia's death magic hit. Valen's blade strikes the final blow, slicing through the weakened crystal with a sharp crack. The crystal shatters. For a moment, the entire chamber is filled with a blinding light, and the stone guardian lets out a deafening roar as its body begins to crumble. The magic that once held it together is gone, and its limbs crack and fall away, turning to dust as it collapses to the ground. The guardian is defeated. For a long moment, the chamber is silent, save for the sound of our ragged breathing. The faint hum of the crystals is gone, replaced by an eerie stillness that feels almost too quiet after the chaos of battle. Valen slumps against the altar, wiping sweat from his brow.
Well, that was exhausting.
Mari nods, her hands still trembling from the effort. But we did it. Talia steps forward, her eyes fixed on the massive stone door that now stands open behind the altar. The exit. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the battle slowly lift from my shoulders. We made it. Somehow, we made it. But as we step toward the door, a thought lingers in the back of my mind. The labyrinth has tested us, pushed us to our limits. But this doesn't feel like the end. There's a sense of unfinished business, a feeling that something is still waiting for us on the other side of that door. We should be ready for anything, I say, my voice low. The others nod in agreement. And with that, we step through the door, leaving the labyrinth and its guardian behind.
Chapter 5.
The heavy stone door groans open as we step through, its ancient hinges creaking under the weight of centuries. Beyond the threshold lies the final chamber, our last challenge in the labyrinth. The door swings shut behind us with an ominous thud, sealing us inside. There's no turning back now. The room before us is vast. The floor is smooth and polished like glass. Strange symbols and glyphs are etched into the stone beneath our feet, glowing faintly with a magic that feels old, older than anything we've encountered in the labyrinth so far. The air here is different, heavier, charged with energy. It hums around us, sending a shiver down my spine. I glance around, scanning the room for any sign of danger, but it's eerily quiet. Too quiet.
Where are we?
Valen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His grip tightens on the hilt of his blade as he surveys the chamber, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. This is it, Mari replies, her voice tense with anticipation. The final test. I can feel it. She's right. There's something here. An energy that's almost tangible, pressing against my senses. It feels like we're standing on the edge of something vast and powerful, something waiting just beneath the surface, ready to be unleashed. Talia steps forward, her eyes scanning the glyphs on the floor. These symbols, they're different from the others we've seen, stronger. The faint glow of the symbols pulse in time with her words, as if responding to her presence. The entire room seems to shift, the air thickening as the energy in the room intensifies. The magic here is raw, potent, and dangerous.
What do you think it wants from us?
Valen asks, his voice tight with tension. I take a deep breath, feeling the magic in the air swirl around me. The labyrinth has tested our strength, our ability to work as a team, our resilience against impossible odds. This final test, it feels different. Like it's not just about defeating some creature or solving a puzzle. This feels like something deeper. It's testing who we are, I say quietly, my gaze fixed on the glowing glyphs. Not just our powers, but our will, our ability to command the forces inside us. Mari frowns, her brow furrowed in concentration. So how do we pass this test? Before I can answer, the ground beneath us trembles. A deep, rumbling sound echoes through the chamber, and suddenly the glyphs on the floor flare to life, glowing with blinding intensity. The light pulses once, twice, then erupts into a storm of magic that fills the air with crackling energy. The entire room seems to shift and warp, and for a moment, I feel like the ground is falling away beneath me. We all stagger back, trying to regain our footing as the room transforms around us. The smooth stone floor shifts, changing shape, rising and falling like the surface of the ocean. Columns of stone shoot up from the ground, forming jagged, twisting shapes that rise high into the air, creating an intricate maze within the chamber itself. The walls close in, narrowing the space, and the ceiling lowers, pressing down on us. In the center of the room, something stirs. A figure emerges from the shadows, stepping forward with slow, deliberate movements. It's not a creature like the ones we've faced before. This figure is humanoid, but larger, taller, its form shimmering with an ethereal light. Its face is obscured, its features shifting and changing with every step it takes. Magic swirls around it, pulsing in time with the glyphs on the floor.
Is that...
Fallon's voice trails off as he stares at the figure, his eyes wide with disbelief. I think it's a projection, Mari says, her voice tight with concentration. A manifestation of the labyrinth's magic. The figure doesn't speak, but I can feel its presence pressing against my mind, probing, testing. It's as if the labyrinth itself is looking into my soul, searching for something deep within me. And then, without warning, the figure raises its hand. A surge of magic floods the chamber, and the air around us crackles with energy. The ground beneath us shifts again, and I feel the familiar tug of power inside me, light and shadow, both surging to the surface in response to the figure's presence. It's a challenge. It's testing us individually, I realize, my heart pounding in my chest. We have to prove we can control our powers. As the words leave my mouth, the figure's gaze turns toward me. I feel its focus shift, the weight of its magic bearing down on me like a tidal wave. My heart races as the light and shadow inside me swirl, fighting for dominance. The figure's magic is calling to both sides of me, pulling at the light and the darkness, forcing them to clash. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This is what the labyrinth wants, to see if I can command the forces inside me, to prove that I can control both light and shadow without losing myself to either. I summon the light first, letting it flood my veins with warmth. It feels familiar, comforting, like the touch of the sun on my skin. The air around me hums with radiant energy, and I raise my hands, shaping the light into a glowing orb. It pulses with power, casting long shadows across the chamber as it hovers above my palms. But then the shadows come. They rise from the ground like tendrils of smoke, swirling around me, wrapping themselves around the light. I feel the cold, dark energy of the shadows pulling at me, trying to smother the light, to consume it. The two forces clash inside me, and for a moment, I feel the familiar pain of imbalance, the same pain I felt ever since I first discovered my powers. The magic is overwhelming, pushing me to my limits. I can feel the pressure building, the light and shadow fighting for control. If I lose focus for even a second, it could tear me apart. Rayna! Talia's voice cuts through the chaos, grounding me. You've got this. I grit my teeth, forcing myself to stay calm. The figure is watching, waiting for me to falter, but I won't give it the satisfaction. I focus on the balance, the delicate line between light and shadow. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding harmony between them. I let the light and shadow swirl together, merging into a single, unified force. Slowly, the pain fades. The orb of light in my hands grows brighter, the shadows swirling around it but not consuming it. The two forces exist together, neither overpowering the other. For the first time, I feel in control. The figure tilts its head, as if acknowledging my success. Its focus shifts, turning towards Valen. Valen steps forward, his blade already in hand, the water-forged seal glowing faintly with energy. The figure raises its hand again, and a wave of magic surges toward him. Valen meets it head-on, swinging his blade with precision. Water swirls around him, responding to his command, forming a protective barrier as the magic crashes into him. But the figure's magic is relentless. The energy swells, pushing against Valen's defenses, and I can see the strain in his face as he struggles to hold his ground. "Come on, Valen," Mari mutters under her breath. "You've got this." With a shout, Valen pushes forward, his blade cutting through the magic like a knife through water. The energy dissipates, and Valen stands tall, his chest heaving with the effort. The figure turns next to Mari. She doesn't hesitate. Her telekinetic energy flares to life, swirling around her as the figure's magic surges toward her. As the magic clashes with her telekinetic energy, Mari's brow furrows. The magic pushes her back. I can see she is moments away from losing her shield. "You got this, Mari," I yell. "Focus." Mari grits her teeth and pushes back on her telekinetic energy. With a sharp motion of her hand, she redirects the energy, sending it crashing into one of the columns that line the chamber. The stone cracks and crumbles, but Mari remains steady, her power holding firm. Finally, the figure's gaze shifts to Talia. Talia steps forward, her eyes glowing with the eerie light of the death dimension. The figure's magic surges toward her, but Talia meets it with a surge of her own power, the energy from the death dimension swirling around her like a storm. The two forces collide, and for a moment, it seems like Talia might falter. But then she steadies herself, drawing on the energy around her, and the magic dissipates. The figure watches us for a long moment, its form flickering in the dim light. Then, slowly, it lowers its hand. The challenge is over. For a moment, we stand in silence, our breaths coming in ragged gasps as we try to process what just happened.
Did we pass?
Valen asks, his voice hoarse. I glance at the figure. Its form is fading, becoming less distinct, as if the magic holding it together is weakening. And then, with a final pulse of energy, the figure disappears, leaving nothing behind but the faint glow of the glyphs on the floor. The room is silent. And then, slowly, the stone door at the far end of the chamber begins to open.
Chapter 6.
The courtyard of Menkarion Academy is bathed in golden light as we stand on the grand platform, our ceremonial robes fluttering in the warm breeze. All around us, other students and faculty members are gathered, their eyes fixed on us with pride and admiration. The trial is over. We made it through the labyrinth. The weight of what we've accomplished hasn't fully settled in yet. I still feel the echoes of the final test, the pressure of the magic, the way it pushed us to our limits. But we made it, together. As the headmaster steps forward to present us with our emblems of leadership, I can't help but feel a swell of pride. This moment, this ceremony, it's what we've been working toward for years, and now we're here. We've earned our place in Menkar's history. When my name is called, I step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The headmaster places the emblem in my hand, a symbol of everything we've fought for, and I turn to face the crowd. But it's not the crowd I'm looking for. It's my father. King Logan stands at the edge of the platform, his eyes locked on mine. His expression is proud, but there's something else in his gaze, something deeper. He steps forward, his presence commanding, and without hesitation, he pulls me into a tight embrace.
You've done well, Rayna.
He says, his voice low and steady.
You've proven yourself.
I pull back, meeting his gaze. There's a weight in his eyes, a sense of expectation. But it's not the same weight I felt all my life. This is different. This is about responsibility, about the future.
It's time for you to stand at my side.
He says, his voice filled with pride.
You're ready.
I nod, feeling the full weight of my new role settle on my shoulders. I'm ready for this. I've been preparing for this my whole life. As I stand beside my father, the crowd cheering in the distance, I know one thing for certain. The trials may be over, but my journey has only just begun.